It was supposed to be a peaceful Saturday morning, the kind where the world feels slow, gentle, and predictable. I had just brewed a fresh pot of coffee, letting the warm aroma drift through the kitchen, when a strange rumble echoed from outside. At first, I thought it was just a delivery truck or kids playing too close to the yard. But then came the shouting. Loud, aggressive, commands barked by voices that didn't sound trained, just loud for the sake of being loud. Before I could step toward the window, something slammed against my front door so hard the walls trembled. My mug slipped from my hand and shattered across the tile. Another slam, then another. The sound wasn't methodical like law enforcement, it was reckless, almost desperate. And then it happened. The door flew inward with a violent crack, splinters spraying across the living room like shrapnel. 5 men stormed in wearing mismatched tactical vests and cheap plastic badges labeled, HOA Compliance Enforcement. Their boots stomped across my hardwood floors as if they owned the place. One pointed at me with the confidence of someone who'd watched too many action movies. Hands where we can see them. This property is under HOA investigation. My mind stumbled between confusion and disbelief. HOA investigation? For what? And since when did homeowners associations deploy armed enforcers? Something was wrong, deeply, dangerously wrong. I tried to speak, but one man shoved past me, knocking into a table and sending a family photo frame crashing to the floor. They poured into my house like a chaotic wave, flipping open drawers, sweeping their arms across shelves, dumping out my belongings with no sense of respect or legality. Violation of exterior maintenance code, one of them barked while tearing open a cabinet completely unrelated to anything outside. Another muttered, "We need pictures of everything," snapping random photos with a cracked phone. The worst part wasn't the mess. It was the sheer arrogance, how they looked at me like I was the criminal. Standing in the doorway of what used to be my peaceful morning, I froze, not out of fear but out of heartbreak. This wasn't enforcement. This was ego. Entitlement. A group of untrained men playing hero with manufactured authority. And as the sound of breaking wood and crashing objects echoed through my home, one chilling realization settled in. These weren't officers. They weren't even legitimate HOA workers. They were imposters. Fakes. And they had no idea whose home they had just invaded. As the chaos unfolded around me, I stood still, quiet, observant, calculating. The fake HOA squad ransacked my living room like overgrown children trying to imitate authority. What they didn't know, what they couldn't even imagine, was that I had spent 24 years upholding the law they were now mocking. I was a federal sheriff. But in that moment, revealing it would have been the worst decision I could make. Their hands trembled just enough to be noticeable, nerves, adrenaline, maybe fear hidden under bravado. These weren't trained professionals. One wrong movement from me could have triggered panic, and panic creates tragedy. I had seen it too many times in the field. The untrained are always the most dangerous when they think they're in control. So, I chose silence. I let them believe they held the power while I mentally tracked every detail, faces, body language, even the serial number scratched into one of their fake badges. My training kicked in automatically, the way muscle memory does for veterans. Slow breathing, calm observation, no sudden movements. Still, it was hard. Harder than any raid I'd ever been part of. Because this time, it wasn't a criminal's hideout being torn apart. It was my home, my sanctuary, the place where I kept the last memories of my father, a veteran who taught me that honor wasn't something you wore, it was something you lived. As one of the fake officers knocked over the display case holding my father's folded military flag, something inside me twisted. I watched it fall in slow motion, the glass shattering like a gunshot through my chest. They didn't even notice. To them, it was just another object in their fake mission. My jaw tightened, and for a moment, I felt anger rise like wildfire. But anger clouds judgment, and judgment was the only real weapon I had right then. Another man wandered into my hallway, peeking into rooms he had no right to enter. "This is all evidence," he muttered, lifting random items as if he understood legal process. I wanted to laugh, or scream, or both, but instead, I breathed. Slow, controlled. They thought they were in power. They thought I was just another quiet homeowner too scared to resist. If only they knew. Silence wasn't weakness. Silence was strategy. Because when the moment came, and I knew it would, every second of quiet would turn into the loudest truth they'd ever hear. The breaking point came faster than I expected. I heard my service dog, Ranger, an old German shepherd with more discipline than any of these men, let out a sharp, confused bark from the backyard. Ranger never barked unless he sensed danger or disrespect. I moved toward the sliding door just in time to see one of the fake officers yanking him by the collar. "Animals not registered," the man grumbled. "We're confiscating it." Confiscating? My dog. My breath left my body in a single, stunned exhale. Ranger looked at me with those steady, trusting eyes. He didn't understand the chaos, but he understood me. That was the moment the weight inside my chest snapped clean in half. I stepped outside slowly, not rushing, not aggressive, just controlled. The man tugged again, jerking Ranger's neck. The rage that surged in me was a quiet, burning thing. Not loud, not wild, just absolute. "Son," I said, my voice low but carrying across the yard like a warning bell, "put the leash down." He turned, irritated. "Back off. Law rules." I had heard enough. I reached into my pocket carefully, slowly, deliberately. His eyes flicked to my hand. He stiffened, gripping the leash tighter. The other fake officers edged toward the door, watching like a pack unsure whether to run or lunge. Then I pulled out something small. Something simple. Something that changed everything. My badge. Silver. Heavy. Undeniable. Their expressions collapsed all at once. Fear, shock, disbelief mixing into a single frozen moment. The man holding Ranger's leash went pale, fingers loosening involuntarily as he whispered, "Oh, God." Another backed up so fast he tripped over a flowerpot. A third muttered, "This isn't real, this can't be real." But it was real, and they knew it. I took a step forward, steady as the law itself. "This home," I said, my voice cutting through the air like steel, "belongs to a federal sheriff. And what you're doing is a federal crime." Silence. Pure, suffocating silence. Ranger trotted to my side, resting against my leg like he'd been waiting for this moment. The men didn't move. They didn't breathe. They didn't blink. The facade of authority they'd been hiding behind had evaporated, leaving nothing but fear and the dawning reality of what they had done. The raid was over. Their game was over. But the consequences, those were only beginning. For a long, heavy moment, the yard felt frozen in time, like the air itself was holding its breath. The men stood stiff, wide-eyed, their earlier false confidence evaporating like mist under a hot sun. I could feel the anger inside me pulsing hard, a steady drumbeat reminding me of everything they'd done. My broken door, my torn-apart living room, my father's fallen flag, my terrified dog. Every piece of damage had carved a wound in me. And yet, I didn't reach for my cuffs. Not yet, because as I looked at them, really looked, I didn't see hardened criminals. I didn't see malicious intent. I saw fear, immaturity, men who had allowed pride and stupidity to lead them into something they weren't built to handle. They were scared kids in oversized tactical gear, not villains. One of them, the youngest, had tears welling in his eyes. He wiped them quickly, pretending it was sweat. We didn't know," he whispered. Another stammered. "The HOA president said this was standard enforcement, he told us it was legal." I took a slow breath, grounding myself. I'd learned long ago that justice without compassion becomes something cruel. And compassion without accountability becomes something useless. The balance mattered. "You messed up," I said firmly. "Badly. You broke the law, and you invaded the wrong house." Their heads dropped. "But," I continued, softening just a little, "I'm giving you one chance to make the first step toward fixing this." They all glanced up at once, confusion mixing with hope. "You're going to help me clean every inch of what you destroyed," I said. "Every frame, every shelf, every piece of furniture you tossed. You will put it all back exactly as you found it." There was no argument, no complaints, just quiet nods. Inside, they moved like different men, humbled, shaken. The guy who kicked my door spent nearly 30 minutes sweeping up splinters. The one who dropped my father's flag handled it with trembling care as he placed it gently on the table. The dog grabber whispered an apology to Ranger, who, being wiser than most humans, accepted it with a slow wag of his tail. Watching them, I felt my anger cooling, not disappearing, but settling. These men weren't beyond redemption. They weren't evil, just misguided, and maybe, just maybe, this moment would be the slap of reality that set their lives on a different path. Justice would still come, but for now, accountability and compassion were enough. A week passed, and slowly my home began to feel like mine again. The real investigation revealed everything the imposters told me that day, their fake badges, their phony authority, and the corrupt HOA president who orchestrated the entire stunt. He had fed them lies, convinced them they were some kind of community task force with power to enforce compliance. He was arrested. They faced charges, lighter ones, because they cooperated fully and handed over every detail of his scheme. In my home, neighbors gathered, helped rebuild, repaired my broken door, brought food, offered support. Chaos had dragged out the worst in a few people, but it brought out the best in many more. That contrast stuck with me. But the moment that stayed with me the most happened on a quiet evening just as the sun was dipping low, turning the sky a soft gold. I was sitting on the porch with Ranger resting at my feet when I heard cautious footsteps approaching. It was the youngest man from the fake raid, the one whose eyes had filled with tears when he realized what they'd done. He held something tight in his hands, wrapped carefully in a cloth. His shoulders were tense, his voice barely above a whisper. "Sir, I wanted to return this properly." He unwrapped the cloth slowly, revealing my father's folded military flag, cleaned, creased, and refolded with more respect than I'd ever seen from anyone outside the service. He offered it to me with both hands, almost like an offering. "This wasn't just an object," he said. "It meant something, and I disrespected it. I'm truly sorry." For a long moment, neither of us spoke. The sunset, the quiet air, the sincerity in his voice, everything blended into a moment I will never forget. I took the flag gently and placed my other hand on his shoulder. "Son," I said softly, "honor isn't about being perfect. It's about owning your mistakes and choosing better afterward. Today, you did exactly that." His eyes watered, but this time he didn't hide it. He nodded, swallowed hard, and walked away, not running, not shrinking, but standing a little taller. A changed man. As he disappeared down the street, Ranger nudged my leg and let out a soft huff, like he understood the moment. And I realized something powerful. Sometimes, the greatest justice isn't punishment, it's the transformation that happens when compassion leaves a bigger mark than anger ever could.